What's up, everyone? We are back for episode 2. This is Andy here from the Songwriters Lounge podcast, and we're super excited today. We've got a brilliant show lined up for you with lots of new songs that we're featuring from the people that listened last week. We've got some questions in there too, and we've got the usual crap banter between me and Tom that you can look forward to, eh?
Oi, 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 oi.
So what's been happening, Tom, with you since we had the last podcast, mate?
Not a lot, mate. I've had a few, song and music inspirations, but I'm just lazy at the minute. I haven't sat down and really worked anything out. Apart from that, I'm going on vacation at the end of next week.
Oh, sick. Where you going?
Nice. Just a little road trip down the East Coast. We were going to fly, the wife and I were going to go to Peru for a couple of weeks, but obviously everything got cancelled because of the
COVID
virus.
happened, yep.
Yep. So then we just thought, right, we'll go and visit all the East Coast places, go right up and down, and come home. So yeah, I hope it brings me some inspiration because I've been going a bit flat at the moment. So what about you, man? I know that you got a new puppy, right?
Oh, it's been mental. I'm a new furry baby dad, and it's just amazing. It's been class. We picked him up on Saturday, and we were kind of a bit worried about him at start because you know how puppies get when you pick them up and you rip them away from their mummy. They're all
it's hard.
But he actually, we kind of slowly built up the trust, and he slept for 7 hours the first night, and I was like, what?
Hey.
I said to Marcii, this isn't normal. Like, they are usually not like this on the first night anyway. It was a false sense of security because last night was a different story. But in saying that, he was still great. But if I do start to talk a wee bit delirious tonight, you'll know why.
Just sleepy man.
Yeah, I'm a sleepy man. But no, apart from that, I've been working with a new artist in the UK on a new song, and I've been really enjoying listening to some of the submissions that we've had come through.
Oh, mate, they're fantastic. Fantastic.
So exciting. So I am massively excited about where we'll go with this episode, and it's going to be interesting now getting the listeners involved, getting other people involved, and seeing where we go from there. So
definitely.
So yeah, all busy stuff.
Good man.
So that leads us into our first songwriting moment, which we've decided this week to try and talk about. How do you find your inspiration for your songs, which is very ironic since you're finding that lacking at the moment.
Well, it's like the age-old question, right? Like, where do you find your song inspiration? And it comes from everywhere. Completely random moments. I know we touched upon it in our first episode, but to go into a little bit more detail, it usually does come out of nowhere. And I know that doesn't help anyone, but I always have my phone with me. Like we said last week, your voice memos are your best friend. But if I'm struggling with a particular song and I need that inspiration, which is the kind of fun come in right now, what I'd often do is I would just go on a walk and have some headphones in and just go along and try and switch my mind off completely. I'm lucky enough to live in a place with loads of little lakes and ponds all around. So I'll just go walk around the pond and stick my music in and just hope inspiration hits. And 9 times out of 10 it does. And listening to other artists, and I'm so excited for the people that we've got on this week because I just couldn't believe the quality when we had the submissions through, and just incredible. And I listened to one on repeat all day, and I'll get into that when we do our song submissions. But I know it's kind of like a lackadaisical answer, but it really does come out of nowhere, and you just have to roll with it because when that inspiration passes, it's not coming back anytime soon, and unless you're completely talented in every department.
Totally get it. Totally. I mean,
what about you, man?
No, to be honest, I'm absolutely the same. It comes from a subconscious kind of area for me. But I'm like you, it's definitely not a deliberate process. If I try too hard to write a particular song or a particular hook or whatever, it doesn't feel like real and authentic to me. So usually what I've found for me, the way it happens is it will be something that's been in my mind or that I've been in amongst like in the last wee while. So it's It's either something I've picked up from watching a movie that I've been like, whew, blown away by, or, you know, a TV show, or a personal experience, or a conversation, absolutely anything. An example is one of my songs, Our Last Goodbye, is basically a really depressing acoustic ballad. But I kind of sat down and wrote that in Wales after on a kind of long journey. My fiance's from Wales, so we drive from Scotland all the way down there. It takes about 5.5 hours, so there's plenty of time to talk. And we were just catching up, and she was just telling me about a colleague that she works with and the real difficult phase in her life that she was going through with another family member. And I was really taken aback by that story, and I was like, that's a really terrible tragedy. So what better way than when I next sat down in her piano room in Wales, you know, this thing just floods out me. And
it happens, yeah.
Certainly wasn't deliberate, but I kind of sat down after it, read back the lyrics and went, oh, for fuck's sake.
What have I done?
What have I done? Like, this is depressing. But then you put melodies to it, and you give it a voice, and it's, you know, it's life isn't always just a happy pop song that you hear in the charts. You need the sad Adele moments too.
Oh, exactly, man.
So
you kind of touched upon another really great way to find inspiration, and that's watching a movie, sitting down watching a film. Like, I had one, and I still want to write a song with this in mind, but the film The Holiday with Kate Winslet, Jack Black, some incredible stars. But there's a moment in it where Kate Winslet and Jack Black's characters are dancing. I think they're dancing. And Jack Black's character says to Kate Winslet, I can't remember her character's name, so I'll just use Kate. So he said, that's my role. So, like, Kate, if you were a melody, I'd use only my favorite notes. And like, that just really inspired me. And it's little lines like that. And again, in conversation, it can happen. But in movies, some of the dialogue is still so well written that you think that could be the most brilliant theme of a song. And I've been wanting to sit down and write a song with that in mind for ages. But yeah, you touched upon it, man. Just watching a movie, listening to someone else's songs and finding inspiration from a specific moment.
I mean, I remember writing, like, do you remember the American TV program One Tree Hill?
Yeah.
So
great show.
Yeah, it was a great show. And back in the day, I was watching one of the episodes, and I can't remember what character, but she's like, they've just started their life, and she just collapses, you know, and he kind of runs to her, and that's her dead, you know, and they're starting their married life together, I think it was. And I just remember being like blown away by that just kind of moment. And then I went and, I think, you know, whatever age I was back then, wrote a song about it, and it was, again, horrendously depressing, so there's a theme going on here.
It happens, man. It happens at times.
The depression ones come easier, that's for sure, but I've had that conversation with many artists that say, oh, I can never write a happy track without it sounding just either cringy or cheesy, and I totally get that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. You know, you have to pick and choose your battles when you're writing songs. And for me, I find it really hard. I went for a massive stage of just writing like love songs when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get out of that kind of theme. But then written with some amazing people since that have kind of helped guide me in a way that just kind of switching your train of thought slightly to kind of warp this theme into a different theme and trying to go with the story and creating a story, because that's what we're doing. We're telling stories. So
yeah.
I mean, there's so many things you can do to find song inspiration. That's just a few, but I'm sure something will tick in our minds another time we're recording, and
who knows what will happen on your road trip.
I hope so.
There better be some absolute belter stories to bring back on this podcast.
Oh, I'm counting on it, mate. I'm counting on it.
Class. Well, in terms of inspiration then, we'll move on to our next section where we'll look at, which is what I'm very excited about this week, is looking at our listener song submissions. And I'm going to say that there's a bit of a Scotland versus England kind of championship going on here between the first and the third song.
Right,
so
okay. Well,
I think we might give you a run for your money here with the first one, which...
It is a class song.
Oh, it's a brilliant track in it. So these guys are called the Eves. They're from Scotland, and this song is called Love Will Find You. I'll let them introduce themselves, check out some of the track, and then we'll give it a wee review. What do we say?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Hi, we're the Eves. This is our single, Love Will Find You.
You can let it go and don't be alone in the darkness. Looking for the light. Nothing's ever easy. It's hard to get it right. Oh, love will never leave you. Always on your side. Even if you run, even if you hide, love will find you.
Yes, love that.
Oh, mate.
Love that.
It's just the
Just
vocal
quality.
the vocal compression on that is so perfectly done
Yeah.
that it brings the breaths forward, but doesn't bring too much forward. And I just think it's fantastic what they've done there. And
Yeah.
kudos to you guys, the Eves, because not only is the production amazing, but the songwriting is fantastic. And one of the notes that I've written down is sometimes all you need is a pause to create suspense.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to as you know, as songwriters and producers, musicians, we just want to pack so much of everything into this one moment. But just before the chorus kicks in there, it's like, love will find you. And it goes like, that pause there creates so much
suspension.
And it makes the chorus seem huge. And again, it's really, really well produced. I especially like there's like funk guitar stabs in the chorus there, just behind everything. You wouldn't know it's it unless you really listen to it, but damn, it makes the world of difference.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm totally the same. I just think really, really well mixed song, incredibly clean, professionally polished. What I loved, the main takeaway I got is the powerful lyrics. So, you know, you've got that kind of uplifting strength, empathy lyrics, and then you've got this kick drum that comes in and really just drives that strength when they kind of get to the kind of whoa bit. You know, it's
absolutely
fantastic, and I love the kind of what the listener hasn't kind of heard is the full track where you've got this very country style vocalist in the verse and the chorus, but then this post-chorus kind of drop with the woes is a kind of more EDM commercial pop kind of fusion, isn't it? So that for me, I was like, oh, I'm really liking the way it's kind of coming together. And what I really loved from a production point is it's a bit like your funk guitar stabs in the chorus. I really like, there's this really subtle reverb delayed woe effect. So on her main woe line in the drop, there's a kind of couple of milliseconds later woe with a long reverb, which just is beautiful, just to decorate that that kind of depth in the mix. So if you go back and listen to that, anyone that's listening, pay particular attention to that, because that's a really clever thing that's been added in there.
Yeah, definitely. I think like as you said, that just to kind of echo the woe vocal production from a songwriting point of view, that production is used in a songwriting sense. That enhances the song. That's not to make anything sound better in terms of you'd add some EQ and compression to the kick to make it punch like it does, but this is something that they've added after, and I don't know if they produced it or whoever their producer is, but it's just a testimony to every songwriter that doesn't know what producer to go to, just to do your research and listen to little things like this, and definitely always take examples to a producer and say, you see this effect here, I don't know how they've done it, but I'd love to add it somehow.
Get me that.
And they'll know what they're talking about. So, I mean, I know we want to add some kind of critique in every kind of every song we get. So there wasn't really much I could say other than just with my personal taste, I would have chosen a different snare sample for the verses. That's it.
Cool.
And that's just my personal taste. There's nothing.
I mean, I'm sure they would take that listening to that. I mean, yeah, we're wanting for this podcast to get some sort of, not necessarily like a negative critique or anything, but
absolutely
we want to give the listener something like, it's not just me and Tom sitting here going, oh yeah, that was brilliant. Oh yeah, that was brilliant. We want to give you where we do feel like improvement could have been made, you know, a bit of honesty there. Certainly when I send my mixes to other people, I say, look, don't hold back. If you can tell me how bad, like not how bad it is, obviously you don't want to ever be disrespectful or encourage that, but if you can just tell me, look, where are my points that you feel I could improve on? Because sometimes when you're too close to a mix or a song, you don't hear those things. So yeah, in that spirit, for me, I would have preferred a tad more of the background vocals just to really broaden out that vocal hook impact. I felt like the background vocals were just a wee bit too quiet in the hard left and rights. But, you know, that is again subjective and a personal taste. So, but overall, amazing track. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen, isn't it? Like, as we said last week, there's always going to be things about your music that other people would come and maybe just change slightly. And that's the beauty of working with other musicians, and they do things slightly differently. And that's how I learned a lot of what I do. I mean, you just watch and learn, and
that's the way the cookie crumbles.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, again, like just to echo what Andy said, we don't want to come in here and act big-headed and like nothing is negative here. I love this kind of stuff on anything I write or produce. I love people saying, well, have you thought about going this route with it? And that's all this is. This is just a great example of that. But you guys, that is an amazing song.
Top notch.
Definitely adding it to my playlist, let me tell you.
So it's out now, guys, so you can go check that out. And now we'll move on to the next submission, which is going from Scotland all the way to Quebec, Canada, which is class. So we've got a French lassie here called Geneviève, I believe. Geneviève. Oh, pardon. So,
bonjour.
Oui. So hopefully she appreciates some French that we're given there. But basically, this is her submission. It's a very different track. It's called The Last Song.
Hi everyone, this is Geneviève Paré from Quebec, Canada, and it's a real pleasure for me to introduce you to my first release single, The Last Song.
We're going to leave again. That's the best you can do. I swear it's the last time I'll sing about you.
Oh, it's heart-wrenching, isn't it? Like,
my God, I feel like I want to have a big greet now, which means cry in Scottish.
I just want to say that I want to start this off by saying that I think Geneviève is incredibly talented. She's written a song in her second language that can make people that speak English as their first language feel so much and
cry.
It's such a beautiful song, so well written. The piano is amazingly played, and it reminds me a little bit of a song from Toy Story 2 called When Somebody Loved Me by Sarah McLachlan.
That is a brilliant song.
And it's the same kind of thing. It's so emotional, and her vocal performance is so emotional. And I just think this is a wonderfully written song. The chord progression is outstanding. That immediately drew me in when I first listened to it. I just wanted to hear more. And this is the song that I've had on repeat all day because it's just incredible. I can't believe how talented she is to write in English. And
totally.
When I was speaking to Geneviève and she made the submission, she was quite worried about her English and how it comes across, but she speaks wonderful English, and as you can hear,
wonderful English, yeah.
And I'm sure she speaks wonderful French. Yeah. But the lyrics are just so good for
totally.
It's so good, and again, it just adds so much depth. There's so much depth to just piano and vocal, and again, I'll say this over and over again, as songwriters and musicians and producers, you just want to pack on stuff. Like it would have been very easy for her to say, I'd love a drum beat behind it, or can we just add some acoustic guitar? But the fact that it's just piano and vocal makes it so deep and so emotional. I love it. And
Hashtag deep.
Hashtag deep. And again, like the only thing that I'd say from a producer point of view is I would just go in there and clean up the piano at around 250 hertz, just duck out a little bit just to make a little bit more room for, you know, the expression on the vocal. But you would never tell, unless you were a producer, you would never sit down and listen to that and think, oh, there's something missing. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. One of my favorite songs I've heard in a while, actually.
Yeah, totally.
I'm just delighted that Geneviève has made that submission, and I'm glad that we're friends now. So
yeah, massively thanks for sending that. I absolutely loved checking out this track. Just like Thomas said, I loved the raw emotion just instantly comes across by your vocal performance. I love the fact that it's actually not overproduced or like it's not perfect. You can hear some very slight imperfections in the vocal mix, but honestly, this is only a positive for me because it enhances the rawness of the emotion that is coming from her, you know, her vocal, you know, timbre, and it's fantastic. I've really, really been blown away by this track. I love as well the particular moment where the dynamics just draw back as she sings that last line. And it's just, you just feel like, you just feel like, I just want to cry now.
Yeah, you just want a hug.
I just need a hug, man. But no, in all seriousness, absolutely brilliant song. And I was exactly like Tom. He's stolen my critique element there because I'd also written down, for me, the piano just around about the 200 to 250 hertz region could have just been ducked a couple of dB just to clean up the mix ever so slightly. But again, to echo Tom, we are being very kind of critical there if we're going down that alleyway. So really, really great job. Really great job.
Fantastic.
So we've heard the Scottish tune. Can Scotland reign victorious in this episode, Tom, against England? Because we are next up with one of, I think, the nicest guys I see on Instagram, a guy called Marcii, who comes across like such a gentleman, and he sent us this
he's English, mate.
Here.
Of course he does. Of course he's a gentleman.
Right, enough of that. You need to pipe down. So he sent us this track, and it is called I'm Over You, and I will let him introduce that to you guys just now.
This is Marcii introducing I'm Over You, featuring the beautiful vocals of Andrea Ekelly. I really hope you enjoy it.
Thank God I didn't see it through. Luckily, I'm over you. Thank God I didn't see it through. Luckily, I'm over you. Thank God I didn't see it through. Luckily, I'm over you. Thank God I didn't see it through. Luckily, I'm over you. The trouble was mine when you know what you did wasn't right.
Yes. What do you think of that, Tom?
Oh yeah, it's just fantastic. I didn't want it to stop, so I was like, don't fade out. Yeah, I just love it. There's something about a shaker and a click and a clap that just makes my hips want to boogie. You know I really liked the song. Really enjoyed it from the minute one. I love the kind of, again, and we spoke about it last week about in a track that you've done, Andy, the kind of vocal glitch distortion.
Yeah.
I'd love to know how they actually achieved that. If you're listening, guys.
Yes.
Wonderful song. I love the use of the synth brass in there, which is typically you don't hear that, and I love the fact that they made that decision. The vocal melody just really catchy. Just a catchy tune overall.
Catchy tune. No, absolutely. Completely feeling that, because it makes me think of, like in Bruno Mars' band, when they kind of do this kind of
Yeah, no,
They
it
do
is a
that kinda-
proper like
that kind of walkie kind of boppy thing.
exactly.
That's what I can imagine the brass band doing to this. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, man, it is. It's just one of those
Yeah,
tunes that
totally.
it's just a feel good song from the minute you hear it. And
When I'm listening, I'm like, grab me a beer, put me on a dance festival floor or a beach for that matter, and let me just dance this one away. Because I'm just instantly in like a tropical house type vibe, bouncing rhythms, broad commercial style, polished vocals, you name it.
Yeah.
It's got it all, isn't it? It's good.
it's just a very nice sounding song. Just extremely pleasant to listen to. You can't really hate a song when it's like that. And again, like with all the submissions we've had, there's nothing bad to say really, other than if I was to get into the weeds with things as a producer, I'd have loved a little bit more width for the chorus, just a little bit. And you can achieve that by just pulling that bass through a little bit more, and that'll just help it, like just with the vibe. But everything is there. There's nothing bad to say. That's just me being hyper critical, and again in a positive way. I still think it's an amazing track. Nothing takes it away from me. I just, I had to get into the weeds with all three of these submissions because they're so good that there's not a lot to say.
It's a good thing we probably want to have. It's a good problem to have, isn't it? Would you add like some like maybe stereo widening effects or something like that? Just ever so slight.
That's the first thing that I thought of, was just like, and you can achieve that very, very easily just with stereo widening plugins. You don't even have to do it, and every company does it. And you wouldn't even have to do much. You could probably find a preset that works, to be honest. But I just like the song. Another one of those songs that I listen to and think, I'm just going to add this to my workout playlist, or my walk playlist. There's something there that just when it comes on, you just think, yep, here we go. I'm into it. I'd
probably be a bit worried if I started putting this on while I was walking down the street, because I would end up just bopping the whole way down, like, yeah. And people would just be looking at me like, who is this absolute idiot?
Well, I mean, you got the puppy now, so at least you can draw some attention away from yourself.
We can maybe just, I mean, he might make me look cooler.
Exactly. I'd agree.
He probably will.
Yeah, it's not difficult, is it?
No, not difficult. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
But yeah, I just want to... Great song, man. Really, really enjoyed it, and I'm glad you're a Brit, dude.
Yeah, like I loved, man, the vocal chops. So I do vocal chops in my songs, and I particularly appreciate the way that you've added like the movement to it. So it's this kind of spiraling down, glitchy effect. Definitely. And it's so distinctive. I've not came across that kind of effect before. So whatever you've done here, Matt, you've done it very well, because you've created a vocal chop which is a bit unique there, certainly to me anyway. I guess, like for me, with this kind of genre, the only thing critique-wise I would add, as I was expecting a bit more bass punch, a bit more kind of fuzzy bass warmth, maybe kind of in the low-mid area, or certainly a wee bit more kind of sub-frequencies as well. The bass line you can hear, and it's really good actually. It adds to that bop, but just for me it was not as thick as I'd probably want for a kind of tropical house type track. So, but overall, smashed it.
Definitely, yeah, all three of them did. I just can't wait to keep getting submissions in if they're going to be this good.
So will we call it a draw, or is that boring?
Yeah, I'm going to have to give it a draw.
1-1 Scotland versus England.
I can't decide. To
be honest, right, Scotland, if we draw against England, it's pretty much like we've won, isn't it?
It's like a win, yeah. I mean, I'm going to say that
Scotland are that shit usually.
We all won because they're all such great songs, and I mean, we'll leave links in the bio and stuff like that to those songs. We'll be adding it to a playlist of some kind and link into the playlist. Just wonderful, wonderful songs. Can't wait to hear more,
guys. Wonderful work. So that leads us into our next section, which is into our listener question submissions. We've had one from Andy this week, who has been so keen he sent it in 2 parts. So we'll play the first part, have a wee natter about that, and then we'll play the second one.
Lovely.
Hi, Andy here. I just wanted to know whether your songwriting process differs at all depending on what genre of song you're working on.
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. And it's
very good question.
Yes, Definitely. Definitely. Yep. It's something that goes hand in hand with mood and inspiration, I guess. But for argument's sake, let's say we entered a songwriting session tomorrow and we got handed a piece of paper that said, guys, I want you to write a blues influenced track and keeping in that blues genre. The first thing I'd do is put myself into that genre. I'd listen to the genre. I'd start talks very early on with a co-writer just to see what kind of direction we want to take it. And a long time of doing this, I've realized that if you're prepared walking into a session, or just even if that session is walking into your room, picking up a guitar, and that is classed as a session, make sure that you're at least a little bit prepared. If you've got something to tackle, be prepared. As an example of something I'm trying to do right now is I'm really into funk at the moment, and just anything to do with funk, I love it. And because I've been listening to a lot of funk lately, I've been noticing a lot in mixes. And we got a mix submission today that there was a funk stab guitar feel and very funky in the chorus. I stick with that, stick with what you know. I'm not a professed funk musician. Those guys are just outstanding. But I want to learn, and just throw yourself in the deep end and just go with the flow. See where it comes. But if I was just sitting down in my room wanting to write a song, it would just depend on my mood, depend what I'm inspired by at the time, and very much depend on whatever notes I first play on a guitar. What about you, man?
Yeah, no, for me, the genre drives a lot of the expectation on the vibe of the song, but in particular the arrangement structure, because you'll have very different arrangement structures sometimes between like an EDM focus track, which is all about the drop, it's all about that drop, and then in the pop kind of world, it's all about the chorus hook, and it's all about that kind of anthemic vibe with something that you can definitely sing back. Whereas the drop might be what we've just heard with the Matt track before, which is all about that vocal chop, and it's not necessarily something you can sing back. So again, there's probably a distinct kind of mindset shift between those two genres. But also instrumentation will vary for me. So again, using the kind of same example, if I'm writing an EDM track, it's very synthesized, very dance-like, with more emphasis on like the build up, like with a rolling snare and kind of big highs and lows in the builds and the falls. Whereas with pop, we've got large variation of instruments, but they can frequently be more like acoustic. You've still got synthetic sounds in there, but again, you've got then more emphasis on the vocal as being the centerpiece of the whole production. Whereas in EDM, you could argue in some tracks it's all about the kick, because that's the big booming kind of presence in that track. And if you do something like completely acoustic, then as we know, as we've heard just from the track that we've listened to as well on the show, it's raw, it's rich, it's really stripped back. Potentially you can add some like strings to decorate there, but you wouldn't on an acoustic track shove in like a massive synth bass, wobble synth bass. It's just not going to work. So I think that's probably where it guides me, is in terms of instrumentation and arrangement.
Lovely, good question, man.
Yeah, good question. So we'll go to his next follow-up bit here, and I'll let Andy continue and finish where he left off.
And as a follow-up, do you set out with a particular genre in mind, or do you see what the inspiration is first and then take it from there? Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers,
mate.
Yeah, I mean, just coming on from the first part of the question, I just kind of take it as it comes.
Yeah.
If I have a particular idea in mind, I'll just go with that flow and just go where it takes me. But, as Andy said, it depends on the instrumentation choices as well. Do I want acoustic drums in a track? Do I want this in a track? Do I want a real bass? Do I want a synth bass? It just depends. And again, a very broad answer, but it's a question that you could go down rabbit holes all day and talk about it for hours and hours, because I love keeping that in mind. I really do kind of stick to what I'm hearing. I'll listen to my ear, and if my ear is telling me, you're missing this, then I'll add that, and then that's when it kind of forms. So I'm
you just
not
build
very
around it.
not very genre specific, to be fair. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I'm quite influenced by my recent kind of listening. So if I'm like really feeling a certain genre, I'm more likely just to be drawn to write that kind of inspired track, I guess. So, you know, if I am suddenly just in a mood for pop punk, I'm going to be more drawn towards that kind of pop punk chorus rhythm that you get in that track. Whereas if I'm kind of more listening to stripped back acoustic stuff, I'm just going to get drawn naturally there. So yeah, I'm not usually starting out with it absolutely in mind, unless it's like a request from an artist that's like, help me write a pop track. And then you ask, well, what artists are you vibing off? Because pop is so wide, and then you kind of take it from there. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it, really. So yeah.
Thanks for the question, man. A fantastic
Great questions. So we'll go into our final period now of the podcast, which is the production
drum roll,
moment.
please.
Drum roll, please. So Tom, what do you mostly do? Do you mostly mix in mono, or do you mostly mix in stereo, and why?
I'd say stereo, because let me try and phrase this properly. So I think I very much have an idea in mind for the track, and I am not a talented enough producer to try out different things and just end up with the best one. I have to have that in my mind, what I want this to sound like, what I want this drum to sound like, how I want the bass to feel. If I'm writing a track where I want some more warmth, then I know what to do there. And in stereo, I love just starting out with the rough mix as just the volume and the panning, and just go from there. And because I do a lot of acoustic stuff, I know where I want my drums to be placed. That's just my go-to. It's like what you're comfortable with. And I've never really tried doing anything in mono, to be honest, other than, you know, when you're playing around on your phone, if you have like one of the cheap apps or something. But I've never tried, but I'd love to learn, because I know producers swear by it.
Aye.
So some of them do, sorry, not all. But
you get like some experts that absolutely do, you're right, swear by it. And they say like, oh, like I start every mix doing my levels, and even like they're panning in mono. Now, how they do it, I don't quite understand, but they've obviously got it from somewhere. And then they kind of, when they get to finalise the mix, and they really open it out in stereo then and just like polish it up. But nah, I'm like you. I usually start with stereo and pretty much stay there the full way through. Though I do actually go to mono throughout the mixing process, so I don't ignore it completely. And what I'll do is I'll particularly switch to mono when I'm looking for like that balance in mono compatibility in the initial stages. And then when I'm in the middle of my mixing kind of process, I always go through a kind of process where I check for phase. So I make sure that there's not things cancelling each other out. A good thing for me to do, particularly with like your bass and your kick drum, is I'll switch it to mono and just check. Even if my meters are telling me it's okay, I'll just still put it through the good old ear test. And then at the end, usually I'll run like full finalised mix through like my Bose portable speaker. And that just gives me an overall kind of good stamp on if someone is listening to this in their living room, you know, on a similar system, can they expect that result? And you're kind of hearing it through their ears as well, because you've been used to your room, your headphones, your monitors, your near fields. So it's good to get to that level where you can hear it. Oh, how's this going to hold up when it's maybe on a mobile phone and it's coming through just completely mono signal? So yeah, for me, mostly stereo, but a little bit of mono in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than when instruments in a mix are fighting each other. Like, there's out of phase all over the place. And we'll get into phase and how to deal with phase in another episode, I'm sure, because it's a trick. And when you have it figured out and understand what in phase means, it makes the world of difference. And
Massive
you hear it
difference.
immediately.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
Yeah, another really cool question to ask. I don't think I've ever been asked that before, so I enjoyed that.
It's something like, I guess, everyone starting out in the production world will come across, because there's theories for both ways, you know, and I guess it's the same with everything. You've just got to work out what is the right fit for you, and if you find your technique over time is mono, who's to say you're wrong?
Exactly. And that being said, if you listen to this and I love learning any kind of production method. So drop it in the comments. Let us know what you think. Even send us an email just to say, have you tried this technique? Or because we're always wanting to learn. You know, we're not masters. We're not. You know,
hit us with some knowledge, people. Hit us with some serious production knowledge, because we'll get your knowledge on this show for sure. Because if there's something worth sharing, let's bloody well share it. You know.
Yeah, that's the end goal for us, is just to inspire people to do it. And production for me is a complement to my songwriting. So I'm not a producer first, I'm a songwriter first, then producer. And you learn techniques, and you learn techniques through people telling you, and thriving for the knowledge. So what a great question.
Absolutely class. So that has been pretty much our second episode. Can you believe it? We're already 2 down.
Oi, oi.
Oi, oi. So yeah, it's going pretty well, and absolutely, guys, just want to reinstate, thank you so much for your submissions, because this makes the show come alive for me when, you know, we get to hear the voice behind the songs as well, with you guys introducing it, and it's just fantastic. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Everything that Andy just said is just 100% true. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment on all of our platforms. We'll have links in the description, and just let us know what you think. We just genuinely want to hear, and we genuinely want to get you guys on and speak about it with us, because at the end of the day, we're just two guys that love music. We just want to chat about it. So yeah, thank you again, guys, from the bottom of our hearts, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
See you guys.